Minister of Romy says a decision has been taken with regards to the appointing of new management. Member of SMAP discusses the draft legislation, which he wonders if it is a violation. And 4 bids have been submitted for main works of the airport terminal reconstruction project. Those are the headlines for Thursday, March 25th, 2021. Good evening, viewers. This is SXM Daily News, and I'm Valerie Van Putten. Thank you so much for joining me this evening. And as usual, we have a full newscast prepared for you, so let's get started. In our first story, the Princess Juliana International Airport completed its bidding submission process to officially select a general contractor for the airport terminal reconstruction project, Package 2. A bid opening committee convened at the Project Management Unit, the PMU, Airport Site Office to systematically open the electronically submitted bids on March 23, 2021 at 3 p.m. There was widespread interest by international companies with submissions in the range between $70 million through $99 million. Reportedly, a sum of 4 major bids have been submitted to the Project Management Unit, who respectfully presides over the entire airport project. The companies included CCEC out of Singapore, Balas Nadam International out of the Netherlands, Cotton Global Solutions, the United States, and Acon Airport Construction Limited out of Canada. Communications Director at the Princess Juliana International Airport, Mrs. Audrey Jack, expounded further for SXM Daily News.
On behalf of the Princess Juliana International Airport, I would like to announce that we have received 4 bids for the airport terminal reconstruction project on March 23, 2021. The Princess Juliana International Airport completed its bidding submission process to officially select a general contractor for the airport terminal reconstruction project, also known as Package 2. A bid opening committee convened at the Project Management Unit team, that's the PMU, on the airport site office to systematically open the electronic submitted bids on March 23rd as well at around 3 p.m. There was widespread interest by international companies with submissions in the range between 70 to 99 million US. Reportedly, a sum of 4 major bids were submitted to the PMU, who respectfully presides over the entire airport project. The companies included CCECC out of Singapore, Balas Nadam International out of the Netherlands, Cotton Global Solutions, the United States, and Echo Airport Construction Limited out of Canada. The PMU explained that the bidding process was performed according to the World Bank procurement regulations, which were carefully adhered to. The bidders were required to submit their proposals in a digital encrypted file before 2 p.m. yesterday, which were later opened under the supervision of Baker Tilly, which is an independent accounting firm which received the passwords to unlock the encrypted bids. The long-anticipated day is finally upon us, whereby we can now boast of this latest milestone in the way forward to complete the airport terminal reconstruction project. We must focus on building trust from the people, as SXM Airport is known as the People's Airport, and thus the transparency of this bidding was quite impressive. The next steps will include evaluations of the bids, which we will follow the criteria set in the bidding documents. This was the announcement made by the Director of the Project Management Unit, Mr. Mirto Brill. As based upon the project's timeline, the upcoming milestones will also encompass the bid evaluations starting tomorrow and contract awarding by July of 2021. The start of the airport terminal reconstruction project is slated to begin within the 3rd quarter of 2021. Princess Juliana International Airport encountered a devastating hurricane period, as you know, in 2017, and its managing board is determined to complete the reconstruction process.
And as we continue now in more news, in news out of Curaçao, the incoming Prime Minister of Curaçao and leader of the MFK, Gilmar Pisas, had to be rushed to the medical center on Wednesday as a result of a health scare. The correspondent for the Voice of St. Martin News, Gonzalo Quales, filed this report.
Total shock in Curaçao after learning the news that the candidate to become Prime Minister of Curaçao, Mr. Gilmar Pisas, was affected by a brain aneurysm this morning, making it urgently to be led to the Curaçao Medical Center, where right now he is being treated for this brain aneurysm. Of course, when you get a brain bleeding, we all know what the consequences could be. It could be even partially paralyzed, but of course, the function of the brain has been affected. And now it remains to be seen what kind of effect this situation can have on the supposed next Prime Minister of Curaçao, Mr. Gilmar Pisas. We have been following Mr. Pisas, of course, pretty much everybody, trying to get some words, some statements from Mr. Pisas, and he has been diligently, as he is well known for, answering all types of questions and positions that were taken concerning the forming of a new government. It was only yesterday that Mr. Pisas also indicated that he really wants to go to the Netherlands before he gets started with, of course, the formation of the government. The condition of Mr. Pisas is what everybody wants to know everything about it. But of course, at this point in time, we only know it is a brain aneurysm. And whenever you have a bleeding in the brain, you know how many consequences can be attached.
And in more news out of the island of Curaçao, during an extensive interview with Nicole Trinidad of DirecTV Channel 13 in Curaçao, and in a response to a question put to him regarding the Dutch position on human rights, an associate of the law firm Coharis Law Group, PLLC, in Washington, D.C., Peter Coharis, referred to the coho as a symptom and not a disease. Earlier this month, the Parliament of St. Martin submitted the island's first petition to the United Nations, requesting it to investigate violations of a UN mandate right to a full measure of self-government for the people of St. Martin. This petition is based on a motion presented by Member of Parliament Grisha Heiliger Martin of the United People's Party and subsequently passed by 12 of the 15 members of Parliament on November the 5th last year. In the fifth resolution of that motion, Parliament resolved to retain legal counsel to assist the Parliament and Government of St. Martin with ending the violations of St. Martin's unmandated right to a full measure of self-government. During the interview with Peter Coharis this week, the DirecTV Channel 13 journalist Nicole Trinidad asked the lawyer how broad will the investigation into human rights violation by the Dutch government be?
Well, first of all, when one says, is that it? I'm not sure what's more important than preserving and protecting one's human rights. But I think you're absolutely right to make this point, and it's key. This isn't just about the coho. That's not at all what this is just about. The coho is a symptom. It's not the disease. The disease is that there has been a sustained deprivation of human rights and racial discrimination that has permeated this relationship for far too long. I remember last summer seeing reports of protests in the Netherlands in support of the Black Lives Matter movement and also talking about, the legacy of colonialization. Well, you know what? That legacy is alive and well, and it exists today. And part of what we're trying to do is bring attention to this fact and work with the Netherlands to try to address some of these problems, including final decolonization. So it's not at all just about the coho. It's about asserting and protecting all kinds of human rights and completing the decolonization process.
Mr. Coharis, I kind of want to be very clear on this. Your law firm right now based in Washington, D.C., are they just going to do an investigation on this?
No, we want to do more than that. This is the beginning part of this, hopefully the results of the investigation by an independent third parties, two of them, who have expertise in this area, will give support to our allegations. But that hopefully this will spark a broader dialogue and discussion with the Dutch government in terms of, okay, now that we have this shared understanding of the facts, how do we together reach a solution, a shared solution? Because I think there's a lot of, even within the Netherlands, there's a lot of recognition. It's not just the islands, that the current situation, the current constitutional framework or structure that was put in place 10 years ago, it's not working as well as people had hoped. That there are several severe problems that need addressing, and that the parties hopefully will sit down and not just, assume a litigation or adversarial position, but recognize that, they're all Dutch citizens and that it's in everybody's interest to try to address the problems that we suspect the rapporteur and the working group will highlight.
Mr. Carreras, you're known for the United States, as working for the U.S. government, to have several cases done against them for certain entities of the U.S. government. You have been on both sides on different occasions. But the reality here is that, let's be honest, the Netherlands is an ally of the United States of America. Let's not deny this. And they have been NATO allies for decades. Shouldn't it be an embarrassment that the United States or a U.S. lawyer based in Washington, D.C. needs to knock on Holland's door and say, hey, wait a minute here, you're not playing fair here with your own citizens?
Well, first of all, what we're doing is what international lawyers do. The fact that I happen to be a U.S. lawyer, I think is not relevant. I have expertise in international law. I've represented, as you said, the United States. I've represented other foreign governments. I've represented people against foreign governments or corporations against foreign governments. So what's important, though, is the protection of international law. And what we're doing shouldn't be a source of an embarrassment at all. This is really important. I very much respect, the Netherlands as a NATO ally, very much so. And especially under the current circumstances, we are not trying to undermine, embarrass, or hurt the Netherlands, the royal kingdom of the Netherlands, all of the Netherlands. That is not our goal at all. To the contrary, what we're trying to do is forward and promote respect for the rule of law and human rights, which will help all Dutch citizens, because it is been proven, and it's an axiom of international human rights law, that when one person's rights are in jeopardy or vulnerable, then everybody's rights are invulnerable. But when you protect everybody's rights, then it's important, it helps everyone. And what we want to have is a frank, dignified, respectful dialogue with the Dutch to think about how do we, meaning in the Netherlands, how do we reform the current system so that everybody, the entire country, is strengthened by that kind of dialogue and those reforms, not by threats, not by coercion, not by saying you must do things my way or I will cut off all financial assistance from you. That's not the way to proceed. That's a very negative, harmful way, and that, I would contend, undermines the security of the country. What we're trying to do is promote that security and stability.
And still to come, State Secretary Knops issues statement on Advice Council of State. I'll have the details of that story and more when SXM Daily News returns.
Hi, I'm Switch.
And I'm Save.
And together we're here
to tell you about WIB, Switch, and Save mortgage offer.
Now at WIB, you can save and benefit from great specials when you decide
to bring your mortgage to WIB.
When you switch, WIB will offer you
payment of penalty fees up to 3 months interest,
payment of notary fees,
waiver of bank closing fees,
and also the lowest interest rate.
Plus, you'll have the chance to win back 1 year of interest payment.
Visit any of WIB's mortgage specialists and benefit from WIB's Switch and
Hey, that's my part. And Save mortgage offer.
WIB, your partner in progress.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching SXM Daily News, and I'm Valerie van Putten. As we continue now in this item out of the Netherlands, State Secretary Raymond Knops issued a statement on the advice of the Council of State, and it reads as follows. On March the 11th, the Council of State of the Kingdom issued an advice on the Kingdom Act on March the 11th, establishing the COHO. In consultation between State Secretary Knops and the 3 prime ministers of the countries that took place on March 18th, it was agreed, as is customary under the law with advice from the Council of State, that the advice is confidential and is only published if it is billed and the joint response thereto by the 4 countries are sent to the lower house and Parliament. Because the confidential advice has apparently already been leaked and widely distributed, which they regret, State Secretary Knops has now published the advice on the advice of the Council of State and in coordination with the countries. The core of the bill remains intact in the advice of the Council of State. The advice states that it is logical for the Netherlands to attach conditions to the granting of financial support. It is also good to note that, contrary to what is suggested in various media, the bill is not at odds with the statute. It is customary for the Council of State to take a critical look at laws, and we will discuss this with the countries. In the meantime, we have now been working with Curaçao, Aruba, and Sint Maarten for a number of months to shape the implementation agendas based on the country packages. Concrete progress is being made in this respect. This is done as the prime ministers of all 3 countries have indicated earlier in good cooperation with the countries. We also hope to continue this good cooperation in drafting the response to the advice of the Council of State. And as we continue now in other news, member of the anti-poverty platform, Raymond Gisseroen, speaking at their weekly press briefing earlier today, discussed the draft legislation, which he wonders if it is a violation, yes or no. According to Mr. Gisseroen, one of his conclusions is that the Council of State maintained the intention of the Dutch government to impose a Dutch colonial development and reform organ. And in that declaration, all our human rights have to be fully realized by removing all obstacles of colonialism, neo-colonialism, and apartheid. That was not what the country packages will implement in the coming 7 years of COHO dictatorship.
Yesterday, Wednesday, March 24, 2021, in a reaction on the news of the leaked critical advice from the Council of State of the Kingdom of the Netherlands concerning the COHO draft legislation, State Secretary Knops denied that the draft law is at odds with the Charter of the Kingdom. We quote from the press release of the Ministry of Interior Affairs and Kingdom Relations. According to the State Secretary, the core of the bill remains intact in the advice of the Council of State. The advice states that it is logical for the Netherlands to attach conditions to the granting of financial support. Previously, it appeared in various media that according to the Council of Advice, the COHO Kingdom Act would be in conflict with the Charter of the Kingdom. Dutch civil servants would have too many powers. The Council of State would doubt that reforms and loans through the COHO would better promote the autonomy of Aruba, Curaçao, and Sint Maarten. End of quote. Did the Council of State conclude that the draft legislation imposed by the Dutch Ministry of Interior Affairs and Kingdom Relations violates international, state, and national legislation? Yes or no? The Council of State said that the draft in its present form was not adequate. It was going against the Kingdom Charter. The Kingdom government is advised to adjust the draft legislation, considering all their observations, to bring the legislation in line with the Charter of the Kingdom. Our question: did the Council of State maintain the intention of the Dutch government to impose a Dutch colonial development and reform organ, just as the Committee of Financial Supervision was imposed 10 years ago? We conclude, after reading some of the extracts in the news, that the Council of State underlines the need for such a colonial organ, which has to be agreed upon by Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Martin in a consensus kingdom law. If not any more liquidity support. In November last year, we, as co-coordinators of the St. Martin Consumers Coalition, after the Curaçao government signed for the third tranche liquidity support conditions, we stated that the Caribbean Reform Entity, the CHE, which has been renamed Caribbean Organ of Reform and Development, COHO, it is a colonial entity. The COHO has to implement reforms through country packages for Curaçao, Aruba, and St. Martin, which the Dutch government is imposing as conditions for the third loan for COVID-19 liquidity support. This, we said, is pure colonialism. In July last year, one day before Prime Minister Sylvia Jacobs went to the Netherlands for the Kingdom Council of Ministers meeting in The Hague, the Windward Island Chamber of Labour Unions presented the Prime Minister with a checklist to evaluate the Dutch reform proposals. This 10-point checklist was based on the United Nations Declaration on the Right to Development for the people of St. Martin. In this declaration, all our human rights have to be fully realized by removing all obstacles of colonialism, neo-colonialism, and apartheid. That was not what the country packages will implement in the coming 7 years of COHO dictatorship. Article 81 of the Constitution of St. Martin stipulates clearly that international human rights legislation and the Charter of the Kingdom are also legislation in St. Martin. And especially Article 43 of the Charter of the Kingdom states that the countries in the Kingdom have to realize human rights, good governance, and legal certainty.
And in other news, meanwhile, members of the press were invited to a press conference today, which was hosted by the Prime Minister Sylvia Jacobs and Member of Parliament William Marlin at the House of Parliament on the topic of Kingdom Consensus Law trajectory. SXM Daily News will bring you highlights of that press conference in tomorrow's edition of SXM Daily News. And turning now to more news, Minister of Vromi, the Honorable Egbert J. Doran, speaking at the Council of Ministers' weekly press briefing, fielded questions on Wednesday regarding the power outages on the island and the suspension of a staff member at the company. The minister did, however, acknowledge that the process of appointing of a new management is ongoing. However, a decision has been taken, and he elaborated further.
Staff member of GB, of course, you know, I do not get involved in terms of the operations and staffing issues. So that is something I would suggest that they take up with the HR and see how they reach with that specific case. Regarding the appointment of new management, a decision was taken in the Council of Ministers a couple of weeks ago with respect to the appointee of new management, given the current circumstances with the previous appointees. And that is taking place. The process is going through. So as soon that there is more information and information that is be able to share with the public, that will be shared with the public. And you asked the last question regarding the power outages. I did receive several complaints a couple of days ago as well, and I'm waiting a report from the temporary management with respect to what took place and how we can avoid such situations taking place in the future.
Now, turning to our weather forecast for March the 25th, 2021, a gradually strengthening Atlantic high-pressure ridge will result in brisk winds across the region at least through the middle of next week. Additionally, despite an overall stable atmosphere, shallow pockets of moisture moving in the wind flow could still produce some brief showers over St. Martin. Marine conditions will remain slight to moderate for the next several days. So the outlook through Saturday midday, fair to partly cloudy and breezy with brief showers possible. Now let's turn to your 3-day forecast. And still to come, Minister of Justice says that there are a number of uncollected permits to be picked up. And I'll have the details to that story right after this.
The innovative Banco Matico contactless smart card. Your Banco Matico smart card is now equipped with a contactless feature for payments, so get ready to tap and go. Contactless payments are fast, easy, secure, and accepted worldwide at all Maestro-enabled contactless terminals. Tap for transactions equivalent to or less than 100 NAF, or the US dollar equivalent. You will receive notifications via email anytime you tap. Tap, tap, and pay fast. Fast with WIB. For more information, visit our website at wib-bank.net. Tap and go with your partner in progress.
Welcome back, viewers. And as we end this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening, in her presentation at the Council of Ministers weekly press briefing on Wednesday last, Minister of Justice, the Honorable Anna Richardson, expounded about the Coast Guard Recruitment Day and noted the application of immigration documents. The minister says that there are a number of uncollected permits, and despite numerous attempts to get in contact with applicants, they have been unsuccessful.
As so said by the Prime Minister, we have been celebrating the month of March as Women's Month, and indeed a special recognition to all young women who attended the Coast Guard Recruitment Day last Saturday, March 20th, 2021. The Recruitment Day was a grand success with over 70 interested attendees and more than 50% of those attendees completing an application to join the Coast Guard. On behalf of the captain, management of the Coast Guard, and my person as Minister of Justice, thank you to one and all for attending and not allowing the heavy downpour of rain to deter you. I bid each of you success, and I hope that you are successful to the end. With regards to immigration matters, I bring a short notice from the Department of Immigration and Border Protection Services. All persons who have applied for residency and has not yet been in contact with the IBP department, please send an email to immigration@stmartingov.org. The department has quite a number of uncollected permits, and despite numerous attempts to get in contact with applicants, the department has been unsuccessful. As such, the management of IBP is asking applicants to please make contact with the department. IBP management is concerned that persons believe that because they have applied for a permit automatically means that they are in good standing and there's no need to have the physical document in their possession. That is incorrect, and as such, the IBP management is urging everyone to who knows that they have applied for permits to please get in contact with the department via the email I've mentioned. This is applicable as well to companies and agencies that are submitting or have submitted applications for persons. And as well, I mentioned in the last press briefing that there are issues with the phone line. So if you are calling and you're unable to get in contact, please use the email that I've indicated, immigration@stmartingov.org.
And with that, viewers, it brings us to the end of this edition of SXM Daily News for this evening. I am Valerie Van Putten, thanking you so much for joining me this evening. And just a reminder that this and other programs are available online. Simply log on to stmartinmediacenter.com for viewing. And on behalf of the SXM Daily News team, we thank you so much for watching and plan on meeting you right back here again tomorrow.